Here we are. Welcome. Thank you for tuning in. We are ready to go. It's Josh Cary here, and you are ready for, you know what episode we're about ready to record? Episode 97. Can you believe it? Can you feel it? I know our guest can. I hope you can too. Joining me today, it's Brian Benson, coming to us from the other side of the country. I'm here in New Jersey. Where are you, Brian?
I'm in Los Angeles, Josh.
I've heard of that place, Los Angeles. and you're making it work out there, huh?
I'm making it work. I'm trying to make it work. Absolutely. It's where I'm supposed to be.
And yeah. I mean, literally, and by no accident, in part because I'll introduce you officially with all the things you're doing, all the things you've done, all the things you have your hands in. You're also an actor, right?
Yep. Yes, I am.
Yes, we'll compare IMDb pages later on.
Well, I'm sure yours is better, but it's all good.
Oh, that elusive IMDb page. But you've been out there for how long now?
Almost 6 years. Coming up on 6 years, yeah.
I want to
flown by.
I want to hear the stories. We'll get into it.
Sure. How
and why you got out there and why you got out there. I had to, I spent decades in a very dark, depressed, lonely, isolated, desperate, seeking approval. You know the life of an actor, right? Mm. So that's why I found myself in that path. But I'll also want to find out what drew you to this this career. All right, so I want to thank everybody for joining us live, and as always, you're part of this conversation. So as you feel inspired, contribute to the dialogue, because I read in real time. So I'm ready to go. Are you ready to go?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Absolute pleasure. Let's hit record and get episode 97 going, in the books, as they say.
Congratulations on that too. That's a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks very much. All right. Here we go. Hey there, guys. Thanks for joining us. You're tuned right into the Hidden Entrepreneur Show. I am your host, Josh Cary. Our guest today is an award-winning and #1 best-selling author, radio host, actor, filmmaker, and TEDx speaker. He knows the value of trusting intuition and wants to share his own personal journey of self-growth, discovery, and accomplishment to help others reconnect with their own personal truths to live an authentic and fulfilling life. Get this part, as a 4-time Ironman triathlete. Do you know what an Ironman triathlete is? Well, this is a 4-time Ironman triathlete and cross-country bicyclist. Brian knows the value of hard work and never giving up on his dreams, I would say so. A message he shares with audiences through each of his creative expressions. There is so much I'm excited to dig into here. Help me welcome our guest. It's Brian Benson. What's going on, Brian?
Hey, Josh. Thank you. Good to be here.
Absolutely. I know about the Ironman because my older brother did it a couple of times.
Oh, awesome.
Tell us what it involves physically.
Okay. Well, the Ironman distance is a 2.4 mile swim, a 112 mile bike ride, and a 26.2 marathon run.
Wow. So a swim immediately. So you're wet and perhaps cold, and then you immediately have to go on the bike.
Yep.
And then you immediately have to do a full marathon after that.
Yes.
Wow. And you did this 4 times.
Yes.
Why?
I think a combination of things. The first 2 that I did were way back in 89 and 90 when I was just a wee lad.
Wow.
And I had a knee injury, and it was pretty bad. My kneecap got knocked out of place playing mud football in college, and I just set a goal to rehab my leg, and because I was very active and played a lot of sports in high school, and I just set that goal of entering a short course, a triathlon sprint race. And a year later, I got to the starting line, and I just had a ball. It really made me feel alive and empowered. And I ended up doing 4 more that summer. And then I did 10 the next summer. And then that third year, I did my first Ironman. So I think it just kind of was a natural progression.
What
And
did, yeah.
yeah.
What did you learn from being able to successfully complete that?
uh, I think it really, it, hmm, it's interesting. I think, well, I mean, it gave me a lot of confidence, obviously. And I think that helped, late in later years, having that experience, those experiences in my back pocket going forward with other new ventures. But as we kind of briefly talked about, off air, as we're all kind of here working on learning how to love and accept ourselves. And I think I was working on that. And I think that kind of gave me a boost. I think it also acted a little bit as a Band-Aid. So it wasn't a fix, but yet it was something that kind of, does that make sense?
Yeah.
I thought maybe it would be the answer to cleaning up that. But
You're talking about the love and acceptance
yeah,
part.
self-worthiness, sure. So I think subconsciously, I think it was kind of maybe a potential fix for my own self-worthiness issues.
Was it?
No. It
Right.
was wonderful, and I'm glad. I mean, it was an amazing experiences, and it became a lifestyle, and it taught me how to be healthy and find a really, solid routine and learn, what to put in my body and all that kind of stuff. So it was wonderful. It was an education, and it was entertainment too. I mean, it was wonderful. It was fun. It made me feel alive. But I realized that looking back, it wasn't enough, and that needs to come from within.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I identified the theme of this show, which I know is the title of your TEDx talk, actually. Be yourself to free yourself. And then, like you alluded to, we were talking about the idea of learning to love and accept yourself, which, my goodness, I don't know why that's such a difficult thing for us to do. I spent decades not loving and accepting myself. And in fact, showing up and trying to do everything almost incorrectly to get that love and acceptance, which my path in the acting and filmmaking world, 15 years took me because I was looking back, in part, perhaps in big part, I was looking for that external approval, those accolades, right? Just applaud for me, like me, love me, tell me I'm good enough. You find that your path into the arts similar or different?
I think, well, that's interesting. I think mine's a little different. I think maybe there are definitely some similarities. I think, yes, we all want to be, I wanted to be acknowledged and stuff, but, in all the classes that I've taken since I've been out here and stuff, I definitely see people that are just crying out almost, just like, love me, see me, and they just have to really express themselves in huge ways. I'm more introverted. I'm an outgoing introvert, but so I don't feel the need to do it like that. I guess for me, it comes through like, some of the projects that I might do or the, videos that I put out or the short films I make, I want those to be seen and adored and, and people find value in their messages. So I guess it's the same thing, but maybe I do it in a little more low key way.
What was your thing about love and acceptance for yourself where it didn't? How did you have to find it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I feel like I had a really loving family. My grandparents were very loving. My parents were. I mean, we all had our issues and stuff. Yeah, but yeah, they were loving. I don't know. One of the things that kind of might have tripped me up was when I was in high school playing baseball. I was on the JV baseball team as a sophomore, and there was just a couple of us that were sophomores, and the other guys were a year older. One of them thought I looked like a monkey. And so he and a handful of his bully friends started calling me that all season and even during school. And it really made me feel not very attractive. And so I think I carried that forward for a long time. High school can be tough, so
Wow.
probably had to work through that, obviously. I'm not sure if there were any other things that happened to me that I can really remember that might have kept me down.
How did you get yourself out of that then?
Oh, it's just a process. I mean, it took me 25 years. I mean, I don't think for a while there, I don't know if I was aware of that's why I was struggling. And, but after I left my family business 10 years ago and really started stepping out of my comfort zone, I've always tried to be the best version of myself. I think as I became more self-aware and started kind of being in the observer's perch of my own hero's journey and documenting it, I became, through the self-growth process, I became more self-aware of where I was being tripped up and what was holding me back. And so, it just, through my own work, some by accident, some by,
deliberate.
Deliberate.
What was this family business?
We had a golf center in Salem, Oregon. It was a driving range, a retail store, and a 9-hole par 3 course.
Who started this? Your parents, your grandparents?
Well, no, it actually was started by a couple of gentlemen, a couple of World War II veterans. It was just a driving range, and that was actually my first job. I started working there when I was in 7th grade, picking up the range balls, driving a beat up old John Deere mower, and we had a crappy cage made out of chicken wire to try to protect me from the balls. And that was my first job. And my dad ended up purchasing it from them a couple years later when I was in high school. So I worked there during high school, and he then kind of got a partner, and they expanded it, adding the course and a bigger store. And then I started running it in 1997, about 3 or 4 years out of college. I kind of needed some direction, and so I went up there and ran it for 11 years.
What did you go to college for?
I didn't. Well, I was one of those that kind of just knew that I was going to go to college. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I stuck it out and got a degree. I graduated with a worksite health promotion degree, and a lot of folks in that field might have set up wellness programs for people and businesses and such. For me, I was racing in triathlons in college, and so it just kind of felt like some of the classes matched up with exercise phys and public health and stuff. So that's kind of what I ended up in.
So there was no look to becoming an actor at that point.
Oh, no, I didn't even know until a few years back.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, everything that I've done was a complete surprise. I didn't even know what I was going to do after I left 10 years ago. I just knew that I was kind of burnt out working there, and I felt like I was supposed to do something else with my life. I felt like I had a gift inside of me that needed to come out, but I didn't know what it was, but I needed to try to release it. So
what was that feeling like? What were those thoughts like that? What did that feel like?
Well, for me, it's just kind of like a knowing. It's hard to explain because intuition is tough for me to talk about because I think it hits everybody a little bit differently. But for me, it was just, I knew that I needed to keep growing in a different way, and I just couldn't do that anymore. And so luckily, I'm one of those that, I need to keep moving if something feels like that, whether it's a relationship or what have you. But so I just knew. And so I had a chat with my dad, and luckily he was understanding, and he even shared some things with me that he would have done some things differently too, had he could have, turned the clock back. So he understood, and I would have done it anyway, either way, but that gave me it felt good to have his permission to step away. And I ended up having to stay there an extra year, which kind of stunk because I was ready to hit the road and see what was next, but it turned out to be a blessing in disguise. I stayed an extra year because we decided to sell it.
So your father was an entrepreneur.
Yeah, he had an insurance business, and then the golf center was kind of something on the side that we did together.
Do you remember some of the things or the thing that he said he would have done differently?
Yeah, absolutely. So he loved to teach, and he was a really good golfer and loved to teach people how to golf. So every time, he'd just be down at the range just helping customers. And he told me that if he could do it over, he would have become a club professional, certified pro, and gone to a club and just taught and what have you. Yeah.
So then you left. I know that you say you followed your intuition and left. You didn't know where you were going to go. Where did you go?
Well, so that last year, like I said, it was a blessing in disguise. I've always tried to be the best version of me. So I sat down one day because I was feeling really out of balance. I had struggling with it. I had a staph infection in my knee that I picked up that was misdiagnosed too. So I was kind of immobile also. But I sat down one day and wrote down 5 things that I knew that would help keep me in balance during that period of time. And I would refer to my list, and it helped me. And my intuition again screamed, expand the list and write a book. And so I'd never written a book before, but that's what I did. And I self-published it at the end of the year, and I moved away. And that just kind of was the thing that pointed me in this whole new crazy direction.
Is that,
I
yeah. Is that how you found the arts?
Kind of, yeah. So when the book came out, it won a couple of awards, which shocked me, but I didn't sell very many copies because I didn't know how to market a book 10 years ago, number one. And number two, I was terrified to speak in front of people. And so I knew that if I wanted to share that message, I needed to step out of my comfort zone and overcome that. So I then moved to Reno, Nevada to be near my son, who was just entering high school about 30 miles away in Northern California. And just started, I took some community college speech classes. I did Toastmasters. I created my own interactive workshop for the book. I hired someone to co-host an internet radio show. Good. And I took an acting class just to get out of my comfort zone.
Imagine that. I just want to focus on that for a minute, because I know staying comfortable is the death trap for so many of us. We absorb that comfort and we think that that's what we're supposed to be doing, when it's the opposite. If you're comfortable, it's going to be the trap, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would not have found anything had I not just followed that nudge to work on myself. And because I did that, all kinds of other things started happening. I kept saying yes to scary things, and more things happened. I never planned on acting. The acting thing happened. I took the class, didn't really think much about it after that. I had a dream about a month later, a couple weeks later, about this street guitarist, a story about a street guitarist. And when I woke up, I just felt really powerful. I better write that down. And so I did. I met a young filmmaker a few weeks after that, and I said, hey, I don't know, I've never acted before nor made a short film, don't know how to do it, but I have an idea. You want to do it with me? Wow. He said yes. And so we filmed Guitar Man on the streets of Reno, Nevada over the course of 4 or 5 nights. And I'd never played in front of anybody before. I was a closet guitarist, but it just woke my butt up. I felt so empowered and alive, and this little short film had a lot of really wonderful messages in it, and it did well at film festivals. And somebody else invited me to be the lead in their short. And so one thing led to another, and I came here 6 years ago to LA. And so I really didn't see myself doing any of what I'm doing. I just was working on me.
I love that. I love that whole journey. So it goes back to after you left your family business, you knew you wanted to get out of your comfort zone, share your message, but you also knew, which is self-awareness, which I love talking about and acknowledging. You knew that if I want to get my message out there, I'm going to have to talk in front of people in some form or another, perhaps multiple forms. So to get yourself ready for that, you just started taking some classes, like you said, Toastmasters. One of them was an acting class, just because it seemed like okay, let me do that, which I've heard over and over again. And, you know, coming from the acting and film world, I completely acknowledge when people say, anybody, any business owner, person, no matter where you are really in life, take an acting class, take an improv class, right? What does that kind of stuff do for you?
You learn so much about yourself. It's not even funny. Oh my gosh. It can be cathartic. It can just be, I mean, you just learn so much. And for me, someone who hadn't really learned how to love and accept myself, it just, I don't know, it allowed me to release some things in maybe a safe way, or in a way that I didn't even realize that I was going to be releasing them, but yet it was a venue, an avenue.
Expression. It works so well. So you did all this, and then it's really a great lesson in just take a step, just do one thing now that you can, that you should, that you want to, without even seeing the big picture. Just say, okay, this sort of feels right, intuition, and follow that. And now look, now you had this dream because you were open to it, and you didn't just wake up and say, oh, that was kind of cool, or that was weird, or judge it in that way. Right. You were aware, you kept opportunity alive and well, consciously and subconsciously, and you met somebody and said, we should make this film. And you did. And that's sort of how you inched your way into the industry.
Absolutely. I mean, I really, like I said, I didn't plan on doing that. And initially when I started, you know, my first book came out, my mom reminded me after that when I was 3, I told her I was put here to inspire people. So it was kind of interesting. And initially, when I wrote my first couple of books, I felt it was just going to be through books. But then when the movie happened, I realized it just opened up my world. And oh man, there's so many different ways that I can put out positive content. And that's really been the fun part for me, is finding all these hidden gifts or hidden, you know, parts of me, creative parts of me that I didn't know I had. And I've found, and I know that you would agree with me, that creativity is so important. It's connecting with God, source, the universe, whatever you want to call it. It just really enhances and gives our life a lot more fulfillment.
Yeah, and I always hear people say, "Oh, no, but I'm not creative." And oh, yes, you are. By saying that, you're just shutting yourself down. Don't do that. You are creative.
Yeah.
Maybe you're not creative and you feel like you can't paint or sing or write music, but that's only one small thing of creativity. I mean, creativity is such a broad thing. You are creative in so many ways.
Yeah.
It's not even funny. So you should be open to it, looking for these opportunities, because, or else what I did and what perhaps you might be doing too is shutting it down out of fear, because you're like, oh, no, that'll never work. What do people think? Oh, that's not me. I have nothing to say. I have nothing to do. I can't. And that fine. Then that's the person you become. And that's how the world responds to you.
Yeah, that's a tough way to go. And I mean, I've done a lot of stepping out the last 10 years, but there's been parts, like, especially when I got here after a couple of years being in LA, you get told a lot, know a lot. And if you don't have that solid foundation of self-worthiness, it can really smack you. And I didn't know if I wanted to keep doing it, to be honest with you. And, I still kind of stuck it out a little bit, but then I wrote some more books and took a little break. But now that I feel like my foundation is a lot more solid, and that part of me is really accepting myself for who I am and what I have to work with, it's not as scary anymore. And it doesn't really matter what happens. The key is just to go show up. And then the rest takes care of itself. You got to have confidence going into an audition, or otherwise, you're sunk before you even step through the door.
Yeah. Looking back on my 15-year journey, I had a lot of ups, a lot of downs. It's just one day to the next. Even if you get cast in what you think is going to be, oh my God, this is taking me, here we go.
Right. Expectations.
You're like, oh, I got it. Thank you. And then it's never that. It's not that. It might be that for like 10 minutes, but then you go home and you're still the same person and you're still lonely and insecure.
Yes.
It's like, where is the contract? I just performed. I just played to several hundred people, standing ovation. The press was there, or whatever the thing is that you actually did. It's like, okay, now what? Well,
that same thing happened for me as I released, some of my books and different short films and stuff. Cause I've always, I guess since my mom reminded me, I had an idea where this is all headed, hopefully on a little bit bigger scale. And so I would put a lot of expectation on each thing. When it came out, it might have done really well for what it was supposed to do, but it didn't do the grandeur expectations that I put on it. And so then I felt depressed for a couple of weeks, and I did not enjoy the process of it. And I finally got to the point, I don't want to do this anymore if I'm going to be unhappy. This is ridiculous. So that really forced me to also just kind of realize that a number one book or something is not enough to make me happy. It really is the creative process and the journey. It's so cliche, but it really is. There is no finish line.
Yeah. And it's all really well orchestrated, well designed. Everything's happening the way it's supposed to happen. Cliche for a reason. Let's acknowledge that, right? Cliche, yes, but it's so true. If you have some retrospect and looking back and looking forward and looking where you are, I wasn't that good in some parts of my acting career. Like, I was very insecure. So do you think if I'm showing up at an audition, desperate, needy, insecure, am I not only am I right for the part, does anybody want to work with me? Do I, right?
They sense that. I mean, they see it all the time, I'm sure, right? I mean, I give you props for 15 years in New York. I can't even imagine. I mean, that's hard enough just to live in a big city like that. I'm from Oregon, so that would just like be culture shock. but that's a long time to really to go for it. And so
It's true. Thank you. Thank you.
yeah.
Like I said, a lot of ups, a lot of downs. I'm proud of that journey and my credits and from where I started, came to the city, I went to Montclair State right out of high school, auditioned and got accepted to the BFA acting program. So I'm like, this is cool. My dreams are validated. I'm going to become an actor. Here we go. Let's do this. Right. You have everything. Right. And then you like look into the unions and you're like SAG, AFTRA, and equity. And you look at the minimums, that the salaries, and you're like, oh, look at this. A Broadway star gets paid X. I can survive on that. I'm going to make it work. 10% goes to my agent. You know, you had everything already outlined. And then after year one, the BFA acting program, like many, you have to re-audition for your spot to get asked back.
Oh, wow.
So we had our performances for the dean after freshman year. It was my turn to go speak to her to hear my fate. And you can imagine how this story ends. I enter and I see the tissue box on her desk, wondering, you know, it was like a movie, like zoom in on the tissue box. I'm like, why? Excuse me, stop pushing me in. You know, there was like a proverbial push into the room, you know, don't let the door as we push you in. So I sit down, the tissue box is here, and she's like, yeah, we're not going to ask you to return. Devastated, of course. And so I wasn't asked back, but it's like, okay, was I good? I was 19, not a lot, very green, right? Not a lot of life experience. I did my best, but I wasn't cut out for that at that time. But you know, long story short, it was the best thing that could have happened, because then that summer I saw an audition notice for acting conservatory in New York. So I auditioned and got in, and that put me on the path. So it's all good. It's all meant to be, right?
Yeah. You know, blessings in disguise.
Yeah.
My knee injury, leaving the business, what have you, you know, yeah, they're all just blessings in disguise.
It's all whatever it is, as long as you have the emotional support for yourself and perhaps from a handful of others around you. How important is that? Especially, you know, whether you talk about it in context of an actor in LA in that scene, or just as a person. How important is to have a solid support foundation?
Oh, I think it's really important, obviously. I mean, I'm a little bit, like I mentioned, kind of an introvert, a little bit of a lone wolf, but I've got, you know, a very strong inner circle of people that know me and get me. And it's really, it's invaluable. It's invaluable.
What is your book? I know that you have a couple at least, right? But recently, your most recent one is Habits for Success. Tell me about that.
Yeah, Habits for Success. You know, it's just a culmination of the last 10 years of my life of, like I mentioned earlier, just kind of documenting and honing in and focusing on my own self-growth process and self-awareness process. And I you know, I have 48 chapters in there, and there's a lot of different things that I talk about. And I tried to make it entertaining, inspiring, and thought-provoking all at the same time. You know, I didn't want it to be a boring self-help book. I wanted it to, you know, just, you know, there's so many different ways that we can solidify our foundation and work toward that self-worthiness and self-love. And these are all things that I think can help.
What are some of the nuggets we can take away and implement?
Oh gosh, there's so many. I got a little list here. Sometimes I forget because there's just so many, you know, ones, you know, we talked about already. Get creative, be vulnerable, let go of judgment, boldly say yes. It's okay to fail. Happily expect the unexpected. You know, that's me in a nutshell. You know, keep up your momentum. Be easy on yourself. You know, and those are, you know, and there's obviously some that are a little bit more tangible, like, you know, that have to do with taking care of your instrument, you know, like sleep and drink enough water and, you know, make sure you're putting the right fuel in your body and what have you. But
and run a triathlon, Ironman.
Yeah, well, maybe not everybody, you know, but yes, at least get to go for a walk.
Yes.
You know,
I mean, exercise, you know, all joking aside, exercise in some form or another.
Oh my God.
Necessary, mandatory. All I do, quote unquote, all I do every morning, 20 minutes running on the treadmill. Done. That's plenty. It's perfect. It's amazing. It's great. That's it.
Anymore, I go for hikes and I'll walk and I'll ride my bike a little bit, and that I'm good. I mean, I did so much before, but I'm just focusing to put all my energy on other stuff now. But I have to have movement in my life. I get all my creative ideas when I'm out hiking, you know?
So true. Do you journal?
Not in the typical sense that a lot of folks do, but I'm always kind of throwing ideas down and stuff, while I'm hiking, and those probably inadvertently have to do with my own growth process. So in some ways, it's kind of like journaling. Then they turn into a blog or what have you, or part of a book or a story. Yeah.
Tell me about a time when you really weren't yourself and you still showed up in the world. You had to was there a time when you were faking it a lot, or that whole thing, or how did that come about?
Interesting. Well, probably while I was at the family business. I mean, although I didn't necessarily know it at the time, I mean, I wouldn't change a thing because I learned a lot. I learned, I was dealing with the public every day, and I really, learned a lot. So probably while I was there, I think in the back of my mind, when I started doing it, I felt like it wasn't what I was supposed to do for the rest of my life. But the bells just started really ringing at year 11. And that was when it's like, all right, I'm done. So maybe then.
So anybody listening who feels that tug, like, oh, I'm doing this in my job, in my day-to-day, in my world right now, this isn't for me. How do they make that transition?
Just do some investigative work. If there's something that you feel kind of drawn and pulled to, obviously don't quit what you're doing, but kind of dabble in it. Take a class, read about it, whatever. Just start to make it a hobby, and then just see how it grows and evolves. And maybe it ends up turning into something else. I know mine was kind of a little radical. I mean, I really just left without any game plan. If you're able to do that, do that. Luckily I had, not a ton, but I had a little bit of money put away, which enabled me to have some breathing room for, 6 months or a year. So I guess it just depends on the person, but definitely start doing other things. Get out of your comfort zone, like we talked about earlier. Get out of the norm, and because you won't know what really brings you happiness and fulfillment until you dabble, until you start to head toward it.
For the theme of this show, I wrote not only be yourself to free yourself, but I also added in parentheses, so as not to upset people. Because I know that my fear, when I knew some time ago that after spending a lifetime in this hiding spot, right, the hidden entrepreneur, hiding all of my power, my ability, showing up, seeking approval, I was fearful that I was going to upset people and they would retaliate and come after me, and they wouldn't let me out of this box that I've kept myself in. Did you find that people sort of resisted and, didn't appreciate what you were doing?
That's a great question. I don't think so. I know that my parents were supportive, but I think it was like the jury's still out. We'll see. But yet they were supportive. But I didn't get any pushback from really anybody. In some ways, it was also kind of good because I left and I was able to be closer to my son for those 4 years while he was in high school. I was in Reno, kind of reinventing myself. So, it was all melded together perfectly. But I was lucky. I didn't really have any friends that gave me any pushback. I was in a place in my own life that I didn't really have to compromise with anybody.
You use the phrase, I love that, reinvent yourself. Is that really what happened? Is that what you had to do?
Thank you for correcting me, because at the end of my TEDx talk, I say I didn't reinvent myself, but I unraveled the parts of me that weren't. So it is a reinvention, but it's also an unraveling of who we aren't, to allow who we are to come through.
I agree with that. I always use the phrase. In fact, very recently I put a video out talking about it's not about changing yourself, right? You don't have to change.
No.
It's just about evolving into the person, becoming the person you are, and you've
allowing ourselves to be that person.
There you go.
Yes. Yes.
It's
Yeah.
always there. It was always there. For me, it was just all this fear and gunk stuff that I showed up on top of it. And then trying to put on this mask, this happy face, this
Yes.
persona,
Yes.
which, that's why I became a performer, right? Let's keep this alive.
Well, there's so many different ways that we try to fill the voids, and acting or whatever, maybe performance was one, just to try to get that recognition. But I mean, it can happen, alcohol and gambling and what you name it. I mean, just
keep going.
The wrong relationships.
Right.
I mean, finding someone to make us happy instead of, coming together with someone just to be yourself, So, I mean, oh my God, I had to do the same thing. I mean, I'm in my early 50s and I'm finally feel like I'm shedding all these things of who the masks, just really allowing myself to, it's been a process. I mean, I had to work really hard at it, but all these different things I've done creatively have helped me. And
did you say now you're in your early 50s?
Yeah.
My goodness, I'm sure you get that all the time. You look half, right?
I don't, well, no, but thank you. No, I'm all those years of just learning how to take care of myself and probably eating pretty good. And thank you. And I have good genes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, eating healthy, like you said, you got to take care of this, which, so important. So it's the physical, it's the emotional, all of it.
Absolutely. I walk and hike a lot. So being outside in nature helps me chill. I meditate.
Me too.
But food, people don't realize food is so crucial. It's all about the energy. And I've luckily all those years of racing, I learned how something was going to make me feel when I ate it. And so I stay away from most things now because I know that it's not going to. And as we get older too, our metabolism slows down. And so I have to be even more vigilant.
Right. So let's talk about this because I love this. Totally agree with it. I would love every morning a bacon, egg, and cheese biscuit, a bacon, egg, and cheese, pork roll, egg, and cheese on a roll, put some ketchup on that. You know how much I would love that with some hash browns, maybe even at McDonald's. Fine. Sign me up. I would like that. But I know
you'd be ready to go back to bed.
I know. Exactly. So I know that I got things to do in this world, right? Thankfully today, I've identified a strong why. I have my two beautiful children that are 5-year-old, 3-year-old, right by my side, tugging at me, reminding me every morning, hey, don't eat that biscuit. That ain't going to serve you well. I'm like, got it, understood. So I have my eye on the prize. I've done all the work. I continue to do it. And it's just a decision. Do I want the bacon, egg, and cheese biscuit or do I not? Is there a better choice? Why? Because personally, and believe me, I indulge when I want, when I can, when I need, but I know if in the morning, if I'm going to eat that kind of a breakfast, downhill from there.
Well, and having young kids, you need to have even more energy. So, I mean, I know myself really well from all those years of paying attention. I feel so much more confident when I'm at a certain weight. And when I'm more confident, then the parts of me that are still working through that self-worthiness thing flow better. Because, it's easy and I'm introverted too. So I really have to kind of keep myself fine-tuned to put myself out there.
Yeah. So it's almost like reverse engineering. What do you want? What do you envision for yourself? What are your goals? What are you going for? What are you looking to achieve? And then you have to backtrack. Okay, what choices now, today, are going to allow you to get there at all, or even most direct, most efficient, or else not? You can make excuses or you can make progress. You cannot make both. If you're like, no, but I want, but I do, but this, but that, fine. It's your choice though. It's all a choice.
Everything's a choice.
Yeah.
Yeah. And luckily, I think although I didn't know it outwardly, inwardly, I knew what my life's mission was. And that's what drives me. I mean, believe me, it's not like a need to be, hey, everybody look at me because there's an inverted part or introverted part of me, but it's just like, I want to do what I was put here to do. And I want to try to help people as I help myself. Do what? Just learn about themselves, become more self-aware, inspire them to be who they really are. As I've had to work really hard at it myself for a long time. And continuing to, right? And continuing to. Yes, absolutely. Till the day I die.
Hmm. Looking back on a younger version of yourself, what conversation would you have with that person?
Mm. Well, a couple things. One, we talk about the whole self-worth thing and the self-love thing, and just, you're enough the way that you are, and just really remember that and hold on to that as you move through life. It'll be much more enjoyable. And number two, to have fun and enjoy the ride, because there's that part of me that is very self-driven and would sometimes go from thing to thing to thing as I'm creating and heading to that quote destination early on. I haven't enjoyed it as much as I could have. I've probably kept myself from some of the things that we all need to really enjoy life, whether it's a relationship or intimacy. I mean, I was so focused for such a long time that I didn't want anything to get in the way. And we can have it all. It takes self-awareness, and it takes, self-love, so that you can cast yourself with the right people. But we can, and I'm finally realizing that. And so I'm wanting to let more into my, more things into my life as I enjoy
Right. And
life.
yeah, so wonderful to hear. And sometimes you feel like, well, do I deserve that?
Yeah, well, right. And that's part of it too. It's one thing to understand something intellectually, but, which I felt like I did all along. I've been, but yet until you really embrace that from the inside, it's hard to still. So that's why, just keep trying to do the work if you can, and keep shining light on those sore spots,
You have to.
because eventually it will get better. And like I said earlier, once you really love and accept yourself, everything else falls into place. It really does. We just don't carry all that weight around anymore. I'm trying to be someone that we're not, and that's the best part of it all for me, as I'm just feeling lighter and lighter day by day.
That's exactly what the whole nature of my brand, The Hidden Entrepreneur, is based on. I like how you put it,
Yeah,
trying to be someone you're not. I showed up seeking all this approval.
yeah,
And the conflict was behind closed doors. I knew what I was capable of. So I was aware enough to know, but I'm not doing it. So that would create all sorts of tension and anger and
yes.
conflict within.
Yes. And people from the outside are looking at it and say, wow, these guys have accomplished a lot of stuff. They must really have it figured out. Well, so a lot of it's faking it until we make it. You know what I mean? And I'm kind of actually surprised that I've done what I've done without really being that
Yeah.
solid.
Yeah. And then I would go through life wondering why I feel alone and isolated and nobody's connecting with me and nobody gets me. And why doesn't anybody appreciate me or give me
Yes.
that chance? And it's like, well, who are you showing up as?
Yes. Yes. Until we own our stuff, nobody's going to own it.
Yeah. Yeah. Of
Yeah.
course. So was there a time in your life where you showed up with an abundance of fear and it just froze you in your tracks and you had to figure out how to get right through that?
Wow. That's a great question. I think when I was running the family business, I went to a weekly Chamber of Commerce meeting, and they always passed the mic around. And that was freaking terrifying for me, just to say my name and who I was and just a little bit about my business. So sometimes I remember that kind of being scary. And there was a few times while I was acting early on that I didn't know if I could handle it or cut. I would just go in just terrified in an audition for whatever reason. And that kind of almost made me want to not do it, but I just fought through it. In 2015, something happened to me that really, really gave me a lot of confidence. I did a TEDx talk and I did my first play within about a month of each other. And they were both very scary, obviously, but they're also very empowering. And I survived them. And that helped a lot.
Do you believe that everything happens for a reason?
Absolutely. Absolutely. If we're here to learn and grow, and it's amazing how, without getting too woo-woo and stuff, because I wouldn't even know how to describe it, but everything's connected. I mean, it's so crazy how people are brought together to have each other, you know what I mean? Push each other or bring up each other's stuff to, everything. I don't know. It's just, yeah, absolutely. I really do. And looking back at all the synchronistic events that happened to me as I became really in alignment with my path, I think that we're supported. And a lot of the stuff that can be hard for some people were just kind of, I want to say, handed to me, because my preparation put me in that spot of being lucky. But, the TEDx kind of came to me. My literary agent came to me. A lot of things that I didn't really have to spend a lot of time just fell into alignment with, for me, in a synchronistic way.
Well, you say you didn't have to spend a lot of time in those moments, but you spent a lifetime,
Yes,
right?
yes. I was building, my foundation was being built the whole way. Like I said, what's that quote? Something about preparation meets opportunity is luck.
Right.
So
Exactly.
I was preparing, and I would, you know what I mean? I was doing the work behind the scenes.
Right.
So
It's the
yes.
same thing. Exactly. It's the same thing. What they say about actors who become an overnight success.
10 years later.
Yeah. It takes 10 years to become an overnight success.
It really does. I mean, I've worked my ass off, just like, excuse the language, that I know you have as well. And
Yeah.
it is what it is. You know,
Patience, trust, consistency,
self-awareness,
effort. Yeah. Put it in, make it happen.
Routine.
Yeah, and you have to see, and you have to know on some level where you're going, where you're headed, where you want to go, right? What do you want? And a lot of people, me included, for the longest time, I was like, just maybe a half-hearted idea, but no real vision. And okay, well then life will take you where you want to go, which is on its own course.
Yes, or you need to go temporarily to work on something or whatever. I mean, which isn't always easy.
Think about that. Are you spiritual or religious in any ways?
I grew up going to an Episcopal church, so I'm not religious. I would consider myself spiritual, but a very grounded spiritual guy. I mean, a lot of the poems that I've written are, I think, in layman's terms, but have a lot of depth. Yeah.
What do you believe happens when it's all over? Our time here on Earth comes to an end.
I believe in reincarnation.
Good.
I mean, who really knows? But I just know all those times of being quiet and really allowing my intuition to come through and finding balance in my life, which enabled me to really do that on an even deeper level. I know that I have support from the outer realms, whatever you want to call it. I know that I have support, and it's hard to explain, but the more you quiet down and pay attention and are open to it. Yeah.
So let's wrap this up for the listeners. What we've been saying, what is the big message and next step for everybody listening to do? What should people take away and put into action going forward?
Start patting yourself on the back. I have a little success jar, and for me, my idea and version, definition of success has continually changed as during this journey, because initially we all think it's a job or a certain amount of money or what have you, or prestigious role, but it's just the self-growth process and stepping up every day and working on being the best that you can be. And there's so many different ways that I can be successful in a day, whether it's making a difficult phone call, telling someone the truth, going for a walk or a hike, eating something. I mean, just put all that stuff in a jar and just see it grow. I mean, you're being successful every day. And if you can really just focus on that instead of like the big things, it gets a lot easier.
So much value and truth in that. I when you put it that way, what we're successful at every day is not just a fleeting thing. Maybe we succeeded today and
just getting out of bed. I mean, right? I mean, whatever. I mean,
so true. Yeah.
Being a good parent, just having patience in a certain situation, letting someone in while you're merging into the freeway. I mean, I don't know.
All true. Yes.
Yeah, right.
I'm there. I get it. The patience as a parent, that has always, every time I succeed at that, when the 5-year-old and the 3-year-old, they're there testing me, quote unquote. And it's my job to show up responsibly in those situations and not flip out. And now when I can say, you know what, It's fine. Okay. Come on. Let's clean this up. Let's learn from it. Let's see what happened. Let's everybody relax without losing my cool. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will leave you with this final question. G. Brian Benson.
Uh-oh.
How would you like to be remembered?
Ooh. Just as someone who gosh, someone who was brave, that was, brave enough to step out of his comfort zone and deal with his own fears and insecurities, to become a better version of himself, to hopefully help others do the same thing.
Beautiful. Excellent.
Yeah.
There you go. What a story. What a journey that I know is still being written. Can't wait to continue to follow, right?
Likewise. Yeah. Thank you.
Wow. Excellent. Thank you,
Yeah.
Brian, for coming on and for opening up and sharing all this with us. Pleasure to meet you there.
It's you too, Josh. Thank you very much. I appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thanks. And thank you for everybody tuning in, whether it's to the live broadcast here or to the podcast version on Apple Podcasts, Google, or Spotify. Leave a review, rate it. Let me know what you think. I love reading what you have to say. We're going to continue the conversation before too long. We're going to do it again. Thank you for tuning in and joining us. Until we do, go get 'em.